My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminski, filling in for Dave DeBow. And if you've ever wondered, how a university grad turned mobile homes into a successful flipping business, tackling the affordability housing crisis, well, today on the show, I've got Landon Clost from Kelowna, BC, who's not just flipping homes, but rewriting the rules. Landon, welcome to the show. Excited to dive into your unique journey and insights.
Excited to be here, Bryce. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And if you're listening at home, you're not seeing the giant lion picture in the background, which I should get a big lion picture for my background here, but I got this equally amazing sign. But
hey, absolutely.
Tell me, how did you get into mobile homes? Is that a BC thing? Because we don't have a whole lot of that happening out here.
Yeah, you betcha. So I'll kind of take you a little bit back so you get an understanding of where I started out. So I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta. Both my parents have flipped many houses, and they kind of stopped flipping houses around 2008, 2009 with everything that was going on in the United States.
Yeah.
But I've always, been around helping. I'd go paint, do a few things here and there. And my mom actually is also a real estate agent, and she ended up selling a friend's mobile home. This would have been probably about 2011. And at that point, it kind of clued in for her, like, hey, maybe we should try flipping a mobile home. So her and my aunt, because they were the ones that always did the house flips together. And they went in on a mobile home, did that, flipped it, did another one, flipped it. And this is all kind of while I'm still going through high school. Then I get into going to university, and I have this big goal of like, okay, I'm going to be a real estate agent. And the reason I'm going to go be a real estate agent is because I want to make a boatload of cash. And once I make that cash, I'm going to put that into real estate, and I'm going to become a developer. And throughout my journey and networking with a lot of individuals in university, came across an individual who was in commercial real estate, went for a coffee with him, and he actually changed the direction of where I was headed, because he basically asked me a very simple question. He's like, as I was explaining, hey, I'm going to be a realtor, I'm going to make all this money, and then I'm going to go into development. He goes, well, what are you actually passionate about? I said, I want to get into flipping. I want to get into the development side. He goes, well, why are you wasting your time being a realtor? Just go right into that. And I kind of stopped for a second. I was like, well, I can't really do that. I don't know how. And he kind of just looked at me and was like, well, you can find a way. You just have to leverage, whether it be other people's money or, maybe your parents, however else. And at the time, I knew I couldn't go to my parents to get the money. So I was like, okay, well, he has a point. I mean, I know I can't go to the banks. I'm a university student. Like, I don't have much cash to my name. But I went home and I started to think about it. And then what I actually did is I did a little bit of research, found out that, hey, I can just raise capital and do basically a joint venture with somebody. And so I went to online, I found a mobile home that I thought, would be a good flip, because keep in mind, I'm not going for a house flip at this point. I'm thinking I just need to go with whatever I can, afford to do. And it's a little bit lower risk. So I'm not like risking, $500,000 trying to do a house flip, not trying to get qualified by the bank. So I put this whole proposal together, and then I spammed, and for anybody in the US listening, this is similar to Craigslist. It's called Kijiji, and we use that out in Canada. And so I spammed everybody on Kijiji that had, whether it be mortgage in the title, money, capital, business, anything I could find. I just sent everybody a message, and I was like, hey, I have this opportunity. If you want more information, reach out. And, I basically had this quick synopsis of like what I was looking for. And everybody came back, was like, no, sorry, we don't touch mobile homes. It's leased land. There's no way we're touching that. Private lenders were like, no, we only deal with houses. And then out of the blue one day, I get a phone call from this older couple, and they said, hey, we saw your proposal, and we'd love to grab a coffee and chat with you. And I was like, oh, I don't remember their names. I don't remember getting an email from them. But I was like, absolutely, like, let's go grab a coffee when you're free. Tomorrow, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and met up with them. And turns out they were new to getting into real estate investing. They had lived in multiple mobile homes growing up, and they didn't have a whole lot of capital to, put into real estate investing. So this was like the perfect opportunity for them.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I provided them with all the information saying like, hey, look, my parents have done mobile home flips before. I've helped them. I know this market. I've studied it. I understand it. And they ultimately agreed. And I did my first ever mobile home flip May of 2017. And they put up the capital to purchase the home. And then I just ran, a couple credit cards for the rental expenses and did a lot of the work myself and learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, the main thing that stops a lot of people from going into the mobile home business, especially in Canada, is that the trailers and the verbiage too, like mobile trailer,
Trailer Park Boys.
trailer park boys. They're older in Canada. A lot of them aren't new. The trend of trailers and mobile homes um, was really strong probably up until like the 80s, and there's a lot of like 70s and 80s and like maybe early 90s inventory, but the bank won't mortgage something unless I think it's only 10 years, I think it is. So you can do like a mortgage on a mobile trailer if it's like 2013 or newer or something. Like that's my understanding, and it's loose. I'm not an expert, but
Mhm.
that's what I've understood. And so that's, you can flip 100-year-old house, but you cannot, there's no 100-year-old trailers, right? And so how do you navigate those challenges and make a business out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that very good point. So there's only a few banks, and it kind of varies depending on the province too, as it kind of varies between BC and Alberta. But only a few banks in each kind of province will actually look at mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
They will look at mortgaging something in the 1970s and 80s,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot worse for an interest rate wise.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit more strict on what they require. And on top of that, they want to look at what's called like the effective age of the mobile home.
Yeah, when
So
the last time it was updated or something like that.
exactly. So that's a huge advantage for me because I'm able to update them. So what would be, when we bring a appraiser in, the appraiser will look at the home and say, okay, this is 1970s, but based on all of these renovations, the effective age is brought up to basically brand new. And at that point, the bank will be like, okay, we're good to finance it. But that was initially a big hurdle of mine starting out, was navigating those, waters. The biggest thing was creating some really good partnerships with some of the mortgage brokers, because I can tell you right now, I've had so many deals collapse due to the buyers having I shouldn't even say a horrible mortgage broker, but a mortgage broker that doesn't understand the mobile industry.
Yeah.
So that mortgage broker would just end up ruining the entire deal. And so it's basically partnering up with really good brokers, to the ones that understand how to navigate and work magic. And we've had a few over the years, like especially in Calgary. It was a lot harder to get mortgages in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a few that were just like superstars, and they got the deals done. It was like, send me all the information, doesn't matter, I'm going to make this happen for you. And sometimes we'd have to work with them too, like, hey, okay, if we move this price down, $5,000, they are approved, because you got to keep in mind that the lot rent goes into their debt service as well, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts, but there is profit, especially like it's not such a trend in Canada. They didn't, for what it's worth, like houses and trailers were almost the same price if you go back, 20 years, and maybe they were cheaper by marginally cheaper. But
Mhm.
in the States, there's 1,500, 1,500, 2,000 unit parks that, are always changing over, and it's a big business. Where the weather's a little better. Maybe the weather is a determining factor here in Canada, but ultimately, sometimes I'm even tricked when I'm looking at MLS pictures. I'm like, man, this is a nice flip. And then I click to the last picture and it's the outside's a trailer. And you're like, because they can look inside, they can look like an A1 flip, like just as good as the no basement bungalow that I flip over and paint and put the red door on and tile backsplash and all that. You can do that in a mobile home or a trailer to really get the values. Now, still though, when you're buying it, it must be challenging. You must have to bring partners in your own money, because buying those things, especially like if they're going to say, oh, what's the effective age of this thing, you're probably not buying the nicest trailers. Otherwise, where's the margin in that, right?
Got that right. Yeah. So when it comes to actually buying the units, I've always just had investors back me on it. I've never
All
bothered with the
cash.
cash. Exactly. I've
Yeah.
never bothered with the banks. That can be the buyer when they come to buy from me, and I've always made sure to, whether it be I structure the deals differently per investor, but always go in cash buyer. Sometimes I'll get creative with how I'm actually purchasing the deal, depending on the state of the mobile home. We've helped people move into other homes, where they had to get out of the mobile home they're in, and it's just really nasty. And I've for one lady, she was living in a mobile home with no running toilets, nothing for like 7 months. It was really
Mm-hmm.
bad shape. And I got one of my employees to load her, like all of her, belongings up in a U-Haul. And we took her back to her daughter's place, which was like 9 hours away here in BC. But
Mm-hmm.
we do that stuff too, where we want to help whoever we're buying from. We're not here to just, like, obviously we're going to get a good deal on it, but at the same time, we want to help whoever's in that situation be able to get out of the current situation and
Yeah, I
try and
always
create a
say,
win-win.
yeah, I always say it's not we buy houses, it's we buy problems, because you're typically only getting a deal if there's a problem that's more important than how much money they get for the thing. So,
Yeah.
um, so all cash going in. What's your average buy? What's your average fix? What's your average sell?
So back in Calgary, it fluctuated, but I would buy them as cheap as, $5,000, $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And depending if we renoed it, I would be in it for another 60 to 70,000, or we would be actually demolishing the home and moving on a nicer, newer unit.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of fluctuated. But if we moved a nicer, newer unit, we're looking at about 100,000. In regards to the actual like renovated flips in Calgary, we
Mm-hmm.
ranged anywhere from 130, 140,000 resale. And the newer units that we'd move on can go as high as 190 to 200. And I'm speaking back to like 2017, 2018 when I was
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Now the market's a lot better in Calgary, so we do see a little bit more of an uplift there. Also harder time to buy them at $10,000 now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But out here in Kelowna, BC, where I'm mainly focused on, I'll buy anything around 50 to 100,000 for a mobile home. And 50 is like it's complete. We're just tearing it down.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is for my all-in costs with the reno, or whether I'm moving another unit on, anywhere from 220,000 to, I'll phrase it this way. If we put 220,000 into it all in, we want to be minimum selling for 375 to 399. And if we're closer to 270, 280, we're upwards of 450 resale.
For a mobile double wide.
Yep. Yep. Double wide. Like sometimes they're single wides, but they all range from 12 to 1,500 square feet.
Yeah, because there's a lot of some of the nicest mobile home parks, or I don't know if you call it a park, but some of the areas in Kelowna are right on the water. You'll go right up a road and it's all like mobile homes. And I always thought that was weird, but then it really did like resonate with the vibe of that area. Like the trees aren't all chopped down. Everyone's like more neighborly and stuff like that. Like if they knock down some of those mobile home parks and put in houses, it would just turn into like these monstrosities that no one ever comes outside. And it's an interesting, like, that doesn't really exist in too many places, the vibe and the energy of the mobile home communities in BC, because it's like they want to be closer to nature, not further from it.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. One thing I noticed when I first came from Calgary out to Kelowna was the trees in the parks, funny enough. When I'm driving through and I'm like,
It's like a
wow, this is,
canopy.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
a
like, this is
canopy. There's
incredible.
no there's no
These
sun really getting in, but it's like covered.
Yeah, these parks are beautiful, lots are huge, all of that. You know, everybody takes pride in living in the park. They love it. The biggest thing I notice is there's not as much of a stigma living in a mobile home in BC, especially in
Mm-hmm.
Kelowna. And I think part of that reason is you look at it. So for 450,000, you can get a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot double wide
Mm-hmm.
mobile home. Beautiful,
Yeah.
like renovated.
Yeah.
For 450,000, your only choice is that,
Or a
or,
condo.
one or two. You're lucky at a 2-bedroom condo here in Kelowna, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just because of the prices of, single family homes close to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's so it's a really good option for, especially, you know retired couples, let's say, and they've sold their home, they've, had that equity bump, and they're like, I'm just going to buy this home cash. I
We
want the
don't need a
backyard.
basement. Yeah, we don't need a
No,
basement. We don't need a pile of
exactly.
stairs. We want everything. We want 1,200 square feet in one big line or in a double wide. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was just down in Florida, and that is trailer park city, and it's crazy. The they're immaculate. The 55 plus communities in Florida that are all double wides, and they take absolute care. The lawn company comes out, cuts everyone's lawn in the whole complex. They're like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 units in a complex. And it's a lifestyle, and I think it's one of the more overlooked real estate strategies, mostly because of the complication. Like, people don't understand the financing. They don't understand how to even get into it. And it has to be all cash pretty much when you're coming in the door, because the
Yeah.
bank wants nothing to do with essentially a used car on a lot that doesn't go anywhere. Like, they're essentially financing a beat up 77 Chevy or something. So you're going to
Pretty
have to
much.
bring some money to the table. Now, how do you navigate that conversation with your investors? Because a lot of people will go and they'll raise some money and then they'll bring a hard money lender in. But in your situation, are you able to bring hard money lenders in, or do you have to raise the whole thing cash?
Great question. So I now just work with, 2 to 3 investors. That's it. And they back me on all of my projects. But when I was first starting out, part of how I ended up navigating that conversation was I showed them initially, like, that first investor was where I got lucky in the sense that they understood mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was my proof in the pudding. That was a successful flip. So I used that as my example for anybody else I met with. And the whole, discussion when sitting down with an investor is like, look, you're going to get a really good return on your money. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot less capital you're putting up. There's a lot less risk. And at the end of the day, this is a very unique strategy that not everybody's pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I show you the track record that I've done it, I know what I'm doing, and there is money to be made, we're kind of in this like blue ocean where not a lot of people are
Yeah.
going after the same, units that I'm going after. Whereas, like, if I'm going to do a house flip, I might be bidding against 6 other people that want that house,
Yeah,
right?
that'd still be low, 6 people with today's bidding market, especially in Kelowna. You might be going up against, if it's a smoking deal on the market, 60 people might be trying to buy the damn
Yeah.
thing. So, um, when you're early on, when you were raising money for these things, um, how did you overcome the objections about your business model? Every business model has things that we have to like handle as far as the objections, like, oh, you can't find cash flow in Toronto, or oh, you can't. There's always some objection. So how did you go about navigating those objections early on? Setting aside the fact that you could just say, yeah, I've done it, but
Mhm.
beyond that, they say, yeah, you've done it, but like, why is this viable strategy? Mobile home parks, who wants those?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. And a mentor that I had in university actually really like ingrained this in my brain. Basically said, if you go and ask for money, you're going to get advice. But if you go and ask for advice, you'll get money. I
Mm-hmm.
took that approach to everybody I met with, in the sense that I never actually intended to go after, let's say I met with somebody that, was a higher net worth individual. I'm going and sitting down with them to get their advice. So in regards to objections, I'm already laying that out on the table, because every time I show a deal, I'm like, here's absolute worst case. So I'll show best case, most likely, worst, and then just like the absolute worst. This is like what I believe would be like scorched earth, horrible scenario. And then I'll, outline as well. And all of the objections, they would ask me, I just simply give them the honest answer to it, right? In the sense that, oh, well, what happens if the bank can't finance it? Well, it's like, well, a good chunk of these people that buy are cash buyers. So we will find somebody that will buy it, even if a bank won't finance. And
Yeah,
just different
usually it's
objections that
cash.
came up, I would just, explain it. But the premise is that I went in to these meetings where the potential investors didn't have their back up against the wall, because I wasn't coming to them saying, hey, I'm trying to get money from you. I'm just coming at them with like, I just want your insight and advice and your expertise. And that actually ends up resulting in them, listening, being more in tune with it. And then they start to think, wow, this actually does make sense. It seems like a good deal. Well, why don't I just do it? And that's how I end up raising a lot of the capital.
Yeah, it is very similar to the strategy of like, if you have kids and you want your parents to watch your kids, you call up your parents and you say, hey, do you know anyone in the family who might be interested in watching the kids tonight? And you ask for advice. And then they're
Yep.
like, well, I could do it. Thanks, Dad. Here you go. I'm already outside. I'm on the cell phone outside. And you drop them off real quick, throw the diaper bag in and run like a ticking bomb. So yeah, very interesting business. Where do you see things going with this affordable housing crisis?
Yeah, great question. I think, especially here in Canada, I think that what's going to end up happening is there's just going to be a density thing. So
Yeah, that's
they're
what we're
just going to,
seeing across the
yeah, they're just going to push like, hey, let's just stack, apartments after apartments, and that's going to solve the problem. I think that, they will be pushed out, mobile homes, mobile home parks. I'm not worried about here in Kelowna, or at least the park I work in. It's the largest park in all of the Okanagan. I've been very strategic on why I work in that park. I don't go and flip mobiles and like a lot of parks. Very
Mm,
strategic on, which one I deal with. Because I think eventually, I mean, that's part of the business model of a mobile home park owner, is they own it for a certain period of time and then they sell it to a developer who's going to develop it, put a tower, and, get better use out of that land. So for me, I have more than enough work in the park that I'm in for many, many years to come. So I've made it so that it's a very sustainable business model for me in Kelowna, where I have a team that takes care of it all. It doesn't take too much of my time.
hmm
And I am looking into the United States in regards to mobile homes, not as much the flipping aspect of it. I'm just looking to, hey, if I can, purchase these mobile homes and then actually become the bank. So I'll just, sell or finance it to anybody that wants to live in one. That's
hmm
the route I'll go. And I'm doing a pretty big deep dive in just with AI as well, how it, is applicable. I've been using it a lot as like a real estate investor. So I've been doing a huge deep dive on that and how it's going to, give me a competitive edge and give me a lot of leverage as an investor, and especially entering the United States market, because you can get unlimited data out there.
Yeah,
Canada is so restricted on what information you can get.
100%. Yeah.
So
So is that, one thing that I learned down in Florida is you'd mentioned that the plan for these mobile home parks is to go in and buy the park, run it for a while, and then sell it to a developer. And the one security blanket that a lot of these parks come with is I'm probably seeing it wrong. It's like a ROC. So it's like a resident owned community where there's a board and you have to get 51% of the voting members, which are the owners of the lots, to actually unlock the land. So no one can ever sell the trailer park because no one resident can own more than than 3 units. So
mhm.
you can't outvote the board, the community will never be sold. So you're not like ever subjected to a buyout because you can't buy out the park. So what makes you feel secure about your investments inside your community?
Yeah, absolutely. For one, it's still got a 30-year lease left on it. And on top of that, when you look at the actual park being the largest in, West Kelowna, the Okanagan, there
Mhm.
is, what is it, 15 other mobile home parks in the area that are more likely to get people evicted first. At the same time, if they go to try and do the park that I'm in, the storm that would come from that in regards to dealing with, actually like BC
Mm-hmm.
and the tenant laws and all of that, the park
Because
owner
they don't
makes.
own the land, right? They don't own the land under the lot.
That's right. It's so they don't
They're
own like.
renting it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's still leased land, but the park owner, it has a lease with the West Bank First Nations member that
Mm.
actually is the holder of the land.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I feel secure, in the sense that I've done a lot of research. I deal with the park owner, so I know personally, I know it's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually had that happen to me, where a mobile home park had sold in the middle of me trying to sell a mobile home in Calgary, and it actually it ruined my deal. So it went
Mm-hmm.
from, because they went from the lot rent of $490 to $750 the second it switched ownership.
Yeah,
But
because there's a like different, if you're looking into mobile homes and the different structures, it's not as conventional. If you're listening along at home or watching on YouTube, it's not as straightforward as like you always own the land and the house. Sometimes you own the lot and you rent the trailer from someone, or you rent the trailer, or you own the trailer and you rent the lot, and there's a bunch of things like fees and all the other stuff. So really do your research when looking in. It's not as simple as like that thing's broken and I can fix it. Like it's more complicated, but it can be profitable. So if people want to connect with you, they want to reach out, they want to find more about your strategy, maybe learn from you or invest with you, what should they do? How do they find you?
yeah, they can find me on Instagram at just Landon Clost, or Facebook, same way. And any questions, like, I'm an open book, so shoot me a DM, message me. I'm more than happy to chat real estate, chat mobile homes, affordable housing, all of that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time and um, the commonly overlooked mobile home industry. Thanks you for your service.
Appreciate it, Bryce. Thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
no problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.